Okay, it's 6 p.m., so we'll go ahead and get started. Let the record reflect that all commissioners are present other than Commissioner Elliott and Commissioner Benning. The first item on the agenda is public discussion of any item that is not on the agenda. If any member of the public would like to raise anything to the commission that is not on the agenda, now is your opportunity to do so. And seeing no takers, that takes us to item number 4, which is case number CPA 25-1 relating to property south of I-80 and east of North Dodge Street. And
sorry, go ahead.
yeah, no, I was just going to ask you before we start the presentation. So I think the next few items are related to each other, right?
Yes.
Would it be possible to give the commission just a very short overview of kind of the different proposals and how they relate to each other?
Yes, I can
Awesome.
do that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Ann Russett with Neighborhood and Development Services. As was mentioned, this is a public hearing on a proposed comprehensive plan amendment. It is for 57 acres of land that's located south of I-80 and east of North Dodge Street. Here's an aerial showing the subject property. And here's also a map that shows the zoning of this property. It's kind of a mix of research park, single family, rural residential. There's a variety of zones that apply to this area. This is the former ACT property that was recently purchased by J&B Iowa City LLC. And as the chair mentioned, there are several items on the agenda that are all kind of interrelated. This item that the commission is looking at right now is the comprehensive plan amendment, which needs to be considered before the subsequent rezoning applications are considered. So in total, we have 3 applications. The first is the amendment to the future land use map, again, for this 57 acres of property, to change it from office research development center to general commercial mixed use and a bit of open space. And then there are 2 rezoning requests. One is for land that is off of North Dubuque Road. It's 22.5 acres, and that request is a rezoning to the mixed-use zone to align with the requested future land use map amendment to mixed use. And then the final rezoning is for 33 acres of land to the east of North Dodge, which is a request to change the zoning from office research park to community commercial. The applicant did hold a good neighbor meeting on June 10th on all 3 of these applications. So this map shows the proposed amendment to the comprehensive plan. So the red is the request for the general commercial to be changed on the future land use map. This orangish area is a request to change it to mixed use. And the rezoning requests align with what you see here on this map. So their request for the rezoning is for community commercial in this area, and the other rezoning is for mixed use in this area. And for this item, again, it's just for the change in the land use, future land use map for the comprehensive plan. Are there any questions on that before I move on?
I guess I have one question just on process of why the comprehensive plan change, not just a rezoning.
Because the direction in the comprehensive plan is that this area should be for office research and office parks. And so since they want to do something different, we're asking them to amend the plan, so then the rezonings would follow that. Without alignment with the comprehensive plan, staff can't make a positive recommendation. Okay, so when we look at comprehensive plan amendments, we look at 2 approval criteria. The first is that circumstances have changed, or additional information or factors have come to light such that the amendment is in the public interest. The second criteria is that the proposed amendment will be compatible with other policies or provisions of the comprehensive plan. So in terms of that first criteria, circumstances have changed. The IC 2030 plan was adopted in 2013. And at that time, it identified this area as appropriate for Office Research Park. At that time, the former ACT campus was in use. And so the idea was the comprehensive plan aligned with that existing land use of Office Research Park. Since the comprehensive plan was adopted, interest in offices locating within downtowns was kind of a popular thing. A lot of offices were looking at getting out of the Office Research Parks and relocating downtown. Then we had the pandemic, and there were multiple vacancies. ACT formerly employed around 1,200 people on their campus and their buildings. In their buildings, that was about 353,000 square feet. Currently, they have 75 employees on site in about 54,000 square feet. So there has been a lot that has changed since the comp plan was originally adopted. Also, as you know, the city has a real need for housing, and this change in the comprehensive plan can help support that increase in supply of housing. The second criteria is that the amendment is compatible with other policies within the comprehensive plan. As I mentioned, when the plan was adopted, ACT was fully operational. The plan recognizes that the amount of Office Research Park identified may be unrealistic. And since the adoption of the plan, the likelihood of more Office Research Parks in this area has further declined. Not only has the ACT campus closed, but Pearson's has also closed. In addition, there are a variety of land use goals and strategies that this amendment would align with, encouraging compact and efficient development, identifying areas that are appropriate for infill, planning for commercial development, and then in terms of housing goals, encouraging a diversity of housing options throughout the community, identifying and supporting infill development, and concentrating new development in areas that's contiguous to existing neighborhoods. So staff does find that this proposal meets those two criteria, and we do recommend approval of this, of CPA 25-001, a request to change the comprehensive plan for 57 acres from office research development centers to general commercial, mixed use, and public-private open space. In terms of next steps, we will be asking the City Council to set a public hearing after a recommendation from the Commission.
Thank you very much for a thoughtful presentation as always. Do any of the commissioners have questions for staff?
I had a couple of things on the letter that followed that from Shive Hattery. There was one thing that said, well, it will also function as a neighborhood. Sorry. A question about the letter that came from Shive Hattery. This was their reason for the, anyway, the part that says they'll also function as a neighborhood center. I was concerned about what that actually means. Does that mean they're going to have something for the children or parks or, you know, what kinds of things are we talking about with that?
Yeah, at this point, there's no specific development proposed. They're just requesting for a change in the policy direction of the comprehensive plan, but you can ask the applicant to share more details on their vision.
Also in that, there's a section about encourage a reasonable level of housing diversity.
Mm-hmm.
I guess what does that actually mean?
Yeah, I think the applicant can address that.
Okay. Those were my only two concerns.
Do any of the other commissioners have questions for staff? Seeing none, now is the opportunity for the applicant to address the commission, if they would like to do so.
Hello, Steve Long, part of the ownership group of the former ACT campus.
And Mr. Wong, would you mind just signing in on the sheet of paper there? Thank you.
Guess I can talk and write.
Well, you're more talented than I am.
Maybe I can't. Just a second here. There. No, we're excited about the opportunity to reinvigorate the once full campus. And I was here a few months ago when we rezoned the central part of the campus to mixed use. And we've already started working with an architect to convert some of those buildings into senior housing, 55 plus. And so we're excited to work our way to the east and south. You're going to see a lot of me over the next few years. There's 400 acres. And we're only, I think we'll be up to about 100 now after this rezoning, these two rezonings. So, and we're waiting for that portion. We're waiting to work with the city and the city staff and the community as the city updates its comprehensive plan for the next 10 years. And that, I think there's about another year left in that process, I believe. So we won't focus on the eastern part. Your questions about what's intended there. Our intention is first what's allowed by the city, the city code, and what the market. So we are working with a mixed use. We've had some interested parties or entities to can't say specifically what is being proposed, but it's something that's compatible to what's in the immediate area. And our focus is we have a lot of a senior housing experience. We also, in part of the mixed-use land that was rezoned a few months ago, since then we've applied for a low-income housing tax credit, LIHTC senior housing, and we were approved. And so there's 44 units that'll be on the corner of Scott and First. For the proposed mixed-use, we intend to have something similar, and having the mixed-use designation allows to have a mix of uses, something that would be focused on the immediate neighborhoods, and the residents. We anticipate having, in the hundreds of residents living on the current campus in the next few years. For the commercial portion, we've had a lot of interest. Can't say specifics. I've had to sign NDAs, but it would be more of a community focused in some of the uses because it's on the intersection of a highway and the interstate, focused on those uses. And also building off of the cities and the CIP plan to put a stoplight on that corner of ACT Circle and Dodge Street as well.
Thank you, Mr. Wong. Does anybody on the commission have questions for the applicant?
Yeah, could you talk a little bit about the small amount of public-private open space and kind of how you envision that being tied to the existing infrastructure or natural setting in the area?
We're focused just on the comprehensive plan amendment area. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Yeah,
There's a small section kind of denoted between, I believe, the mixed-use section and the commercial. And I didn't know if that was sort of settled or what that was envisioning, just trail connections or connecting to existing infrastructure?
Yeah, that's part of the buffer that we just denoted the buffer on the map.
Okay.
When we sit down with the site plan and work with city staff, we will have a better handle. I mean, obviously, we're going to be following the sensitive areas ordinance, and there's a tremendous amount of woodlands and ponds and wildlife corridors that we want to protect and keep. I mean, personally, I've already had our facilities crew mow the trails and using them and encouraging Oak Knoll residents to use the trails. So that's a big part of, we want to maintain what's there. It's an asset.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Also good single track trails if anybody's interested.
Yeah. Thank you.
Concerns about the traffic. Going around that circle, First Avenue to Scott, it's traffic all the time. Right now, there's only two exits, our entrances to the ACT campus, correct?
That's correct.
And they're both off of that circle. There's nothing that goes off of North Dodge.
Not yet, but there will be.
But there will be.
Next year.
Okay. Okay, that was my concern. That's going to be an awful lot more traffic coming through there.
Yeah, we'll discuss that too with the rezoning.
Okay.
Any further questions for the applicant? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Wong. Now is the opportunity for the public to address the commission, if anybody in the public would like to do so.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. I've already signed in. My name is Katie Gerlach, and I'm the Vice President of Programs for Greater Iowa City, Inc. and Executive Director of Better Together 2030. And I'm here tonight to voice our support for the proposed amendment to the comprehensive plan and the redevelopment of the former ACT campus and surrounding 57 acres. This proposal reflects the kind of forward-thinking land use our region needs. It repurposes an underutilized employment center. It aligns with changing market realities around office space, post-pandemic work patterns, and community realities and growth. The blend of general commercial, mixed use, and public-private open space directly supports the community's need for more diverse housing options, accessible services, and walkable neighborhoods. At Greater Iowa City, Inc., we advocate for efficient, connected development that strengthens our economic foundation and improves quality of life. This proposal checks those boxes by leveraging existing infrastructure and arterial roadways for future growth, creating space for a mix of commercial and residential development that serves both neighbors and regional commuters, preserves environmentally sensitive areas while enhancing pedestrian and bike access, and supports compact, sustainable development patterns that help reduce barriers to housing and retail access. As outlined in both the IC 2030 Comp Plan and regional economic goals, this site is well positioned to evolve into a neighborhood scale hub that will blend commerce, housing, and natural features while contributing meaningfully to the vitality of Iowa City's north side. We respectfully urge your recommendation of approval of, and thank you for your continued leadership in advancing a more connected, inclusive, and resilient Iowa City. And rather than repeat this 4 times, I'm hoping my comments can be registered for CPA 250001, REZ 240013, and REZ 250008.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else in the public that would like to address the commission? Seeing none, do we have a motion on the comprehensive plan amendment?
So moved.
Is there a second?
A second.
Discussion? Commissioner Townsend?
Just didn't realize there was that. I didn't realize there was that much acreage on the ACT campus. I think it's great that they're going to do something with it.
Commissioner Wade?
Steve,
What's that?
did you second?
I seconded.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Commissioner Miller?
Oh, I think Katie summed it up pretty well, all my thoughts. So I think it's great for Iowa City. So.
Commissioner Wade?
Okay. No, again, I think it's great. Glad to see the reuse and comp plan update to match it. So we'll look forward to this being added for this as well as in a new one that's in progress next year.
And Commissioner Davies?
Yeah, I fully support, more flexible use. I think that's really encouraging to see. I think I'll be watching very closely just to see how the natural setting is preserved and how connectivity, bike trails, bike paths, pedestrian access is kind of maintained. I think that's an important feature of that area. So look forward to seeing future designs kind of come to fruition there.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. There are changing times and the demand for office spaces is down. It's important that we're flexible as a community and make productive use of the property that we have. So with that said, we will bring item number 4 to a vote. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? And the comprehensive plan amendment passes unanimously. Which brings us to the related item number 5, case number REZ 24-13, related to a property east of North Scott Boulevard on North Dubuque Road.
Thank you, Chair. So this is one of 2 rezonings that are connected to the comprehensive plan amendment that you just heard. So this is 22.5 acres on North Dubuque Road. You can see the aerial here. So it's the land, I think this is kind of colloquially known as Gaten's Farm. There's the land, and it's just west of, here's the Iowa City Community School District property here. And then it's the land to the north, which is vacant, kind of heavily wooded, and same with the area to the south. Here's the current zoning. There's a lot going on here. We have, I think, 4 or 5 different zoning designations: rural residential, low-density single-family, low-density single-family with the planned development overlay, research development park, and interim development single-family. So again, this application is for the rezoning of that 22.5 acres. Here's a couple images of the subject property. This one on the left is actually looking east from Scott Boulevard. This is North Dubuque Road here, looking east. So here's the Gaten's Farm. Here's the wooded area to the north. This is actually looking west. You can see the fire station here. And to the south here is the scooters would be over in this area here. And then this is some of the existing buildings that are on that former farm. So again, this 22.5 acres does not have any type of consistent zoning designation. Here, I guess it's 6. There's 5 different zoning designations. So there's no consistency in terms of what could be developed in any type of development pattern for this land. The request is to zone it all mixed use, which would allow both residential and non-residential uses. That would include things like assisted group living, multifamily, office, retail, restaurants, that type of thing. And here's the rezoning exhibit that was submitted by the applicant, again showing the subject property. The 2 criteria that we look at for rezonings are consistency with the comprehensive plan and compatibility with the neighborhood. And with the proposed comprehensive plan amendment, this rezoning would directly align with that request to amend our future land use map. The comprehensive plan also has a variety of goals and strategies that align with this request, encouraging compact, efficient development, planning for commercial development, discouraging linear strip commercial development, providing for appropriate transitions, and that's kind of where some of those buffer areas come into play, and encouraging a diversity of housing options, which this zone would do. In terms of compatibility with the neighborhood, kind of similar to the hodgepodge of zoning, there's a variety of different land uses here. There's some single family to the north, in this area right along North Dodge. There's the former ACT campus to the east. You have the school district office in this location. And then to the southeast, we have multifamily, and this is Oak Knoll East here. Staff is recommending a couple of conditions to ensure compatibility. One is that any commercial development that abuts residential zones incorporate a 30-foot landscaped buffer to just provide some additional separation between those residential uses and the commercial uses. And also requiring full cutoff light fixtures for any commercial development. In terms of transportation, access, and utilities, the city did request a traffic study to correspond with this proposed rezoning. The traffic study found that the North Scott and North Dubuque Road intersection will not provide an acceptable level of service through 2047. And this is really limited to accessing the scooters in that coffee shop. And this kind of congestion is anticipated regardless of the proposed rezoning. And that congestion is limited to kind of a small period during the day, during the AM peak hours. The city engineer has reviewed the traffic study and concurs with the findings. Additionally, in regards to sanitary sewer, the city would like more information on the existing sanitary sewer in the area and its capacity. So we have several conditions that we're recommending kind of related to both the traffic study and the sewer system. One is approval of a preliminary and final plat. This area has never been subdivided. So with that subdivision process, it will lay out the street network, lots and blocks. Also, we want to ensure that North Dubuque Road meets city standards for a 28-foot wide street with curb and gutter and sidewalks. I just want to show the aerial here. It's kind of hard to see, but there is no sidewalk on this northern section of North Dubuque Road, so we want to ensure that that sidewalk is there and meets city standards. And then lastly, a flow study in relationship to the sanitary sewer system. Specifically, this is the north branch of the Northeast Trunk Sewer to its point of connection with the North Branch Dam Trunk Sewer. So the applicant will work with our Public Works Department to study that area. So staff is recommending approval of REZ 24-0013, a request to rezone approximately 22.5 acres to the mixed-use zone. And just to go through those conditions one more time, that the subject property go through the subdivision process and get a preliminary and final plat approved, that North Dubuque Road is brought up to city standards and incorporates curb and gutter and sidewalks, that the flow study is performed to ensure our sanitary sewer system can accommodate the growth, that any commercial development that abuts residential provides some type of buffer and landscaping, which would be reviewed by our city forester, and that commercial development would incorporate those full cutoff light fixtures. And so in terms of next steps, the city council will set a public hearing and consider the rezonings at future meetings.
Thank you, Ann. I have one question about the conditions that staff is proposing. Can you help me understand why staff don't believe that the existing zoning code is sufficient for separation between property types, and why you feel that the 30-foot landscaped buffer is necessary?
Yeah, I think one of the reasons is because of this existing single family to the north. This is a rural residential area, kind of large lot, single family. Typically, what you'd see is kind of a transition to higher density housing and then commercial development. And we're kind of going from these large lot, single family to mixed use. I mean, this could be multifamily here, it could be retail, it could be restaurants. So just adding a little bit of extra space to provide more of a transition.
Sure. Thank you. Does anybody else on the commission have questions for staff?
Just the concern about the traffic. And if they're going to have additional entrances onto North Scott and Dubuque.
Yeah, there will be no access to this property from, North Dubuque Road. There's no additional,
And nothing going on to North Dodge at all.
no, because it doesn't even border North Dodge. But the next rezoning, that is a consideration. We'll talk about that.
Okay.
There could, I mean, this is also an arterial street, so additional access points may not even meet our code in this area here. So, but that's something that we will look at as part of the subdivision process.
Before they opened that up and made that all the way out to, Scott Boulevard's connection, there wasn't a lot of traffic there. But since they've opened that up with the circle, there is a lot of traffic there. And I just want to make sure that we aren't making it worse for those that have to travel it every day.
Any further questions for staff?
I had two questions. One's, can you go back to the traffic study level of service one? So on the North Scott Boulevard and North Dubuque Road, is the requirement to improve Dubuque Road, is that solving the level of service, or is it more about that whole intersection with Scott and Dubuque and scooters and everything right at that intersection?
The level of service is related to scooters. And regardless of, the improvements to North Dubuque Road will not address that. And that's going to be an issue even without this rezoning.
So
Yeah.
that becomes a city item, essentially.
We're requesting that the street be upgraded so it has curb and gutter and sidewalk and that it meets our standards for a city street.
And pedestrian traffic, this might not be related to this, but will there be another cross at like Hickory Heights, or will it all funnel to Dubuque Road? I just don't know how that behaves from a pedestrian traffic. If it's all going to go through that one point, or if it would potentially go through closer to Dodge or Hickory Heights.
Yeah, I think in terms of pedestrian crossings, I think, there's obviously the controlled intersection
Right.
at North Dodge and Scott. And so there's a crossing here. There's no sidewalk on this southern portion, which we'll get into in the next rezoning. There's also a median on North Scott here that provides kind of a pedestrian refuge for anyone crossing from the west side of North Scott to the east side. I don't believe there's any pedestrian crossings down here at Hickory Heights.
Okay.
Yeah.
Commissioner Miller, did you have a question for staff?
It's just a quick clarification on the chair's question about the landscape buffer. It makes total sense to have it next to the single family. I'm just curious, is it a standard to have it between CC2 and mixed use? This shown in the?
No, I would say no.
Was it part of the reason that it's there? Is it to like connect?
Are you looking at the comprehensive plan map? Yeah. There probably will not end up being a buffer there.
Oh,
I think if this ends up being, these are both commercial zones, so that are being proposed, so there probably won't end up being, based on the conditions that we have proposed, there probably won't be.
Okay, that makes sense.
I've got one question about just the core campus. Was that rezoned to mixed use?
So this area,
There's one map on the previous slide that just shows it still as Office Research Park.
oh, you're right, this is incorrect.
Okay,
This was rezoned to mixed use.
okay.
Any further questions for staff? And seeing none, this is the opportunity for the applicant to address the commission. Not sure if the applicant has anything further they would like to say about this particular rezoning item.
Updated.
All right. In light of that, the public also has an opportunity to address the commission. If anybody in the public would like to do so. Seeing no public comments, we will bring this to a vote. Is there a motion?
I'll move. So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? And item number 5 passes unanimously, which brings us to item number 6, case number REZ 25-8 regarding east of North Dodge Street and south of I-80.
Okay, thank you, Chair. This is the last of the 3 related to the former ACT campus. This is a request to rezone about 34 acres to community commercial CC2 zone. So here's an aerial map of the proposed rezoning. You can see it includes some of the existing buildings on the former ACT campus, but it also includes some of this land that kind of abuts I-80 to the north. Here's an aerial of the current zoning. It's Office Research Park. Again, as Commissioner Davies noted, this is incorrect. This is actually mixed-use zone. And here's a couple photographs of the subject property. This is looking east into the site from North Dodge. Or is it south? I get so confused. East. Okay. This is looking north on North Dodge. And again, these are the existing buildings that are there. Here's just one close-up of kind of the existing structures that are on the subject property. And here's one that shows this existing intersection. There's currently 3 legs. This is ACT Circle right here. You can kind of see the sign. So this is ACT Circle that does not extend into the site, and that's something that we'll get into shortly here, and then this is North Dodge. So the current zoning designation is Office Research Park, and the proposed, and Office Research Park is really intended to allow Office Research Park, kind of large-scale offices and research firms. The community commercial zone kind of allows a variety of both residential and non-residential uses. It allows upper floor multifamily as a provisional use. It allows restaurants, retail, office, and even some more intensive commercial uses. Very low-scale manufacturing would be allowed, as well as vehicle repair. Here's the rezoning exhibit that was provided by the applicant that shows the subject property. And then the two criteria, again, are, the first is consistency with the comprehensive plan, and again, with the request of changing the future land use map to general commercial. This rezoning request would directly align with the comprehensive plan, future land use map. And similar to the other things that we've discussed with this application, it encourages compact and efficient development, a diversity of housing options, and planning for commercial development, and providing for some appropriate transitions. In addition, in terms of kind of the economic development goals of the comprehensive plan, it could help increase and diversify the property tax base, provide an environment that supports quality employment, encourages a healthy mix of both independent and national businesses, improving the environmental and economic health of the community. And in terms of transportation, we are looking at ways to encourage all modes of transportation, especially off of these arterial streets, and having sidewalks and bike connections. In terms of compatibility with the existing neighborhood, the property is just a portion of the former ACT campus. The remainder of the campus is to the east. And we are recommending a couple of conditions to ensure compatibility. And again, we're recommending that 30-foot landscape buffer between commercial uses both along North Dodge. And so any commercial development on this site, we'd like to see this North Dodge strip kind of landscaped, 30 feet of it landscaped with a mix of plantings that would be approved by the city forester. This is a gateway to our community, so part of the reason we're recommending it here is to ensure that it looks, it's nice, that that's nicely landscaped and welcomes people to our community. And the second is kind of that residential buffer, especially over here where a portion of it abuts those existing single-family homes. Again, the traffic study looked at this rezoning as well, and determined that the existing lane configuration and stop control at North Dodge and ACT Circle would not provide an acceptable level of service. So the traffic study recommends a few things, which are shown in this image here. So the first is a traffic signal, that it becomes a signalized intersection. Installation of a fourth leg that would provide access to the subject property. So the fourth leg is identified here. This would be on the ACT, the former ACT property, to provide access to the site. The traffic study also recommends a dedicated northbound right turn lane, so that's what you see here. If you're heading out of town on North Dodge, there would be a dedicated right turn lane into the subject property. Same if you're heading south on North Dodge, that there's a dedicated leftbound turn lane if you're turning into the property. The city engineer does concur with the findings of this study, and I just wanted to note, we have several conditions that we're recommending that relate to these recommendations from the traffic study, but the city will be the one installing the traffic signal and the pedestrian components to that. That's something that we've already have planned, so that's something that the city will be undertaking. Similar to the previous rezoning, the city would like the applicant to explore the existing sanitary sewer in the area a bit more. So the recommended conditions for this rezoning include, again, that the land be subdivided. This land has never been subdivided. That will help identify streets, lots, block network. We're also requesting the installation of a 10-foot wide sidewalk on the eastern portion of North Dodge from North Scott. And so this is, part of it is an off-site improvement. So the sidewalk will run from North Scott Boulevard to the intersection, the proposed intersection at ACT Circle. And that 10-foot wide sidewalk could accommodate bicycles and pedestrians. And then related to that intersection, the applicant will be responsible for installing the southbound left turn lane and the northbound right turn lane at the future intersection at North Dodge and ACT Circle, and installing that fourth leg, so that the fourth leg here of the intersection that will provide access to their property. The applicant has also expressed an interest in having another access to the north of ACT Circle off of Dodge Street. That would need to be approved by both the city engineer and the Iowa DOT. And the condition that we're recommending is that any request for an additional access up here be limited to right-in, right-out only. And then lastly is that flow study related to the sanitary sewer system. Staff is recommending approval of REZ 24-0008, a request to rezone 33.64 acres of land to community commercial. And again, those conditions are that it has to go through the subdivision process, that they do the flow study to look at the sanitary sewer, that the commercial areas along North Dodge Street have that landscape buffer, that the 10-foot wide sidewalk is installed, that the applicant install the southbound left turn lane and the northbound right turn lane, and the construction of that fourth leg. And again, if the DOT approves an additional access to the north, that it be limited to right in, right out. And so this rezoning would be on the same timeline as the previous rezoning.
Thank you, Ann. Do any commissioners have questions for staff? Seeing none.
I've got maybe some questions. Can you kind of just explain briefly for me just the preliminary plat process of does that go through planning and zoning, or is that just a city approval?
It does go through planning and zoning. The
Okay.
Planning and Zoning Commission would make a recommendation to council.
Okay. And kind of the final roads design would be sort of part of that preliminary plat, presumably?
The preliminary plat will identify the proposed street network,
Okay.
and then through the final platting process, that's when the actual design of the streets are finalized.
Okay.
My question was just about along Dodge Street, so the 30-foot buffer, the 10-foot sidewalk is within that 30-foot buffer, is that right?
No. The 30-foot buffer is on their private property, and the 10-foot sidewalk will be in the city's right-of-way.
In the city right away?
Yeah.
Okay. And then any development would start behind the 30-foot buffer?
Yes.
With CC2, I was just trying to look it up, but I couldn't find it fast enough. Is it required to have like the parking or the buildings like fronting the road and parking kind of
It does not
concealed behind?
require that. There could be parking between the street and the building.
Okay. I know like farther down on Dodge, like across from Hy-Vee, the city's preference on a past project was to put the building closer to the road and conceal. Is that just like a preference, or is that dealt with on a kind of case-by-case basis, or is there?
That's something that we did discuss with the applicant. We had talked about them having buildings that front the street. At this point, I mean, the commission could make a recommendation that we add a condition related to what you're speaking about. I think, and the applicant can probably speak better to this, but their concerns with that were, first of all, the street network for this area is unknown. There could be lots that are like fronted on three sides.
Right.
And so trying to figure out, the parking may be behind the building in some instances and not others. If the goal is to ensure that there's no parking along North Dodge, that's something that could be considered. But there probably need to be at least some parking that is located between the street and the building.
Makes sense.
Has there been any discussion about the sort of very strange ACT road that kind of proceeds to the north and then just sort of dead ends? Is that still planned to just remain as a dead end? It's essentially just kind of sort of is overgrown, but the
This
sort of
ACT Drive.
road, it goes
Oh, ACT
north
Road.
and then proceeds
Yeah.
east.
Yeah.
And then
This
it
is-
just dead ends. It's very strange back there.
Yeah, that is something that's going to have to be figured out as part of the subdivision process.
Further questions for staff?
Just going back to the building frontage question, in the subdivision process, is that a time that there would be more detail? Probably not, because it would just be the lots.
Yeah, the preliminary plat will have no information on the buildings.
But it would have, you would at least be able to see kind of where the lots are, and
Where the lots are, where the streets are, yes.
would it be possible at that time to, the staff, or the commission could make a recommendation about that?
We have never added conditions to a preliminary plat since I've been here. They've always been done at the rezoning stage.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like with the buffer, we're probably okay. I mean, the buffer kind of covers the walkability and kind of entry corridor aesthetics, so. And I assume the type of businesses that would want to go here probably won't. Although the language in here is about, like, encourage pedestrian-oriented development, attractive functional streetscapes to make it comfortable to walk, and the sidewalks on both sides. What was the other language in there that struck me? I lost it, but, so I don't know, something about, I don't know, I lost the language, sorry.
Well, I do want to say that because of that language in the comprehensive plan, we're adding those conditions about, the sidewalk along North Dodge and providing, and even the sidewalk along North Dubuque here. So there's a way to accommodate other modes
Nice.
of transportation. The CC2 zone does allow things like drive-throughs, for example, through special exceptions, which are not necessarily pedestrian-friendly. So through that process, we try to incorporate connections for pedestrians to the building. But the CC2 zoning is not like a neighborhood commercial zone where it talks about things like, or even a mixed-use zone where it's the building fronts the street, you have pedestrian connections to the sidewalk. It is a less restrictive zoning designation.
I remembered, thank you. I remembered the other language that stuck out at me, that one of the conditions or kind of the city's priorities was to discourage strip retail there. What kind of language is in CC2 to discourage that from?
I
It
think-
feels like that might be attractive to like a strip retail.
Yeah. I mean, the zone would allow the uses that are allowed in the zone. I think that's where the subdivision process is really important. Identifying street connections and actual blocks and lots. But, I mean, there could potentially be strip development. I mean, there's nothing that would not allow that.
Yeah, I mean, that's ultimately a question of just what development is permitted in that particular zone, right? So it's not specific to this project. It would be if there's an issue with that zoning classification permitting strip development and we're not comfortable with that, then that might be cause to revisit that zoning classification.
I'm just curious why that was called out specifically then to like discourage strip development if it's,
Because it's one of the policies in the comprehensive plan, to just be clear about
Yeah.
the direction of the plan.
I don't have enough, like, I don't have a strong enough feeling about it to make a recommendation, so I trust staff's recommendation.
Okay, yeah, and we can talk a little bit further during discussion as well.
I've got one additional question, if I can.
Sure.
Okay, the sidewalk on North Dodge, is that applicant responsibility or city responsibility?
Applicant.
Okay.
Yep.
Outside of the property?
Yes,
Boundaries
yeah,
too,
it'll,
okay.
a portion of it will be off-site, kind of this section here.
Okay. Thanks.
And one last question, sorry, I'll make this quick. I remember back when ACT Circle used to go up to ACT, and then it was abandoned and then turned into grass. Was that like a DOT recommendation, or do we have any insight? Or is DOT, they review this ahead of time?
The DOT will approve the intersection.
Okay.
They have to be part of that approval in addition to the city.
Okay.
Mr. Wong, I believe this is your third opportunity to address the commission. I'm not sure if you have anything further that you'd like to add in light of the discussion that we've had.
Hello again. I also should note, Mike Welch is here from Shoemaker. Some of the questions you've been asking have some civil engineering not complications, can be addressed through engineering as well, but there's also a significant grade change from Dodge Street to this site. I think you could see that in one of the photos. I think it ranges from 8 to 20 feet, that's even after we grade for whatever is going to be built there. And you're right, there was a road that connected. I think ACT removed it in 2002. And so we'll be following essentially the same path of that road that was taken out. The building that you see there will be taken down. That was the original ACT building, the Lindquist building. And unfortunately, it was abandoned during COVID and heating and cooling was shut off. So, and the police department's been using it for practice. So mold, and you can imagine what it's like now. So yeah, there are some topography. You can kind of get a sense there of what it would be like. We're happy about the 10-foot sidewalk for connectivity. Ann and I talked about that. That's everything that's suggested we're fine with, and it's going to improve. The improvements to the traffic, the extra turn lanes is a benefit to the community and to our development. So I don't have anything. We've had a lot of interest for commercial development for this area without even advertising, so we're excited about it. And as far as the frontage, your question, do I address you Commissioner Miller? Is that Steve?
Yes. Space Cowboy.
Ann was correct in saying, I mean, we have 3 streets there, and so we talked about that quite a bit. We also want to make the development pedestrian friendly from the inside of the development. There's going to be hundreds of units on the east side of the development. The west side are along Dodge Street, Highway 1. I mean, I don't remember the numbers. I don't know if you remember, Mike, but something like 28,000 cars a day are on Dodge, and Interstate 80 is like close to 40,000. So we were thinking if we keep it closer to the east and make it more accommodating to the residents to the east. But we'll figure that out through the site planning process.
Makes sense.
Thank you, Mr. Wong. Any questions for the applicant? Seeing none, this is the opportunity for the public to address the commission. Third call for public comment. Seeing none. Do we have a motion on this matter?
Moved? Is that right?
Second.
Discussion?
I generally support it. I think I'd be very curious to see how the streets kind of shake out. It seems tricky, but an important part of it.
Commissioner Wade, were you the second on the motion?
Yes, I was. Glad to see it come together. Of course, this is like a total package, so look forward to the preliminary plat. And unrelated to this, whoever the photographer was, has some great photos on this one.
Oh, that's our planning intern, Olivia.
A-plus
I will
intern
let- I will
work.
let her know.
Yeah.
That too, yeah.
Special accolades from the commission.
Some artistic shots.
I've had so many times that it never looks like that.
It's great.
Well, maybe he or she has a future in real estate photography. Commissioner Townsend?
Just that it's long overdue, and it's, that land has been sitting there for quite a while, and I've been concerned about it, and it'll be interesting to see what goes up there.
And Commissioner Miller?
Nope, I'm in support of it. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, and I agree, and I also think Commissioner Miller asked some good questions about tasteful development and doing what we can to prevent strip malls or other kind of distasteful commercial development. But like Ann said, I think a lot of that just comes down to doing a good job of planning and platting, and I've got confidence in the staff to do that appropriately. So with that, we will go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And the motion passes unanimously, which brings us to item number 7, case number REZ 25-9, related to 2510 North Dodge Street.
Thank you, Chair. Let's see here. Okay, so this is, we're going to another former office complex, just up the street, 2510 North Dodge, and this is a request for 27.9 acres to be rezoned intensive commercial, CI1. So this is the former Pearson site, which you can see on the aerial. So this is already built out, North Dodge Street here, Interstate 80 to the south and Moss Ridge Road to the north. Here's the existing zoning. It's currently zoned Research Development Park, kind of similar to that ACT property where it envisions office parks, research firms. To the west, this land was rezoned to CI1 a few years ago, and then we have some CH1 highway commercial to the east. So this land was annexed into the city in the 70s. It was initially developed for Westinghouse Educational Services and was later transferred to Pearson. In 2014, the city approved a rezoning of the property from Office Research Park to Research Development Park. The former Pearson site was recently purchased by GSD North Dodge LLC. It has sat vacant for nearly 5 years, and the new owners are looking to repurpose those existing buildings with a variety of land uses, including office, indoor commercial, recreational uses, warehousing, retail, restaurants, and many of those uses are not allowed in the current Research Development Park zone. Here's a couple photographs of the subject property, some of the existing buildings and private drives that run through the site. Here's one of the existing surface parking lots. So again, Research Development Park that zone is pretty limited to thinking about large office and research firms. The intensive commercial zone allows a variety of different land uses. It is a more intense zoning designation than the community commercial that we just discussed. It allows things like warehousing and freight movement, which the applicant is interested in continuing. It does not allow residential uses. It also allows indoor commercial recreation uses, which the applicant can speak to, and it was in their applicant statement. They've had some interest in some groups for some sporting facilities. So the CI1 zone does provide more flexibility for a variety of commercial uses. Here is the rezoning exhibit for the subject property provided by the applicant. And then we'll get into the approval criteria. So for the first, it is consistency with the comprehensive plan. Here, the comprehensive plan identifies this area as appropriate for Office Research Development Center. The plan talks about, has lots of text in it related to how this is a major employment center. There's lots of office space. There's the Pearson campus. There's the ACT campus. Obviously, all of this was written prior to those businesses vacating these sites. The need for office space has significantly diminished since this plan was adopted. The former Pearson site has been vacant for 5 years. There's a lack of demand for office space. A rezoning really is needed to reuse this area. And the Northeast District Plan, and this is kind of the main point, and this is why we are recommending approval of this in terms of consistency with the comp plan, is that the Northeast District Plan recognizes that there needs to be some flexibility in the uses that are envisioned for this area. Even though the future land use map shows that it's appropriate for office research development, the plan recognizes that it might be identifying more land than could be accommodated for office research. It notes that it may be unrealistic, and it notes that there are alternative uses that could be appropriate in these locations, two of which the applicant is particularly interested in continuing the recreational uses for the sporting facility and the warehousing uses. In terms of compatibility with existing neighborhoods, the surrounding land allows similar uses. All of the land to the west is also zoned CI1. There's the I-80 to the south, and you have North Dodge Street to the east, and then there's that highway commercial to the east as well. And so staff is recommending approval of REZ 25-0009 to rezone 37.9 acres of land at 2510 North Dodge Street to intensive commercial. And in terms of our timeline, after a recommendation from the council, or from the commission, this will be moved forward to the city council. And I'll turn it back over to the chair.
Thank you, Ann. Does anybody on the commission have questions for staff? Seeing none, this is the opportunity for the applicant to address the commission, if you would like to do so.
Thank you. My name is Ed O'Connor. I am with the Gaifman Group. I will not try to write. My handwriting's terrible. All right. Yeah, thank you. Again, my name is Ed O'Connor. I'm with the Gaifman Group. We are extremely excited about this property. And I just want to first and foremost say thank you for the opportunity to present and to be given the opportunity to rezone this property. We've owned the property for just a few months, and it's honestly been thrilling. It's been exciting. The buzz, the energy to revitalize this property has been immense. We have 3 current tenants lined up, an office user on the front portion, a large office user, a data center user with a large office use, and then why we're here today for the rezoning, League One Volleyball, Iowa United. They have high aspirations for this corner to not only use it immediately, but long-term and expand even the property that will require addition and renovations. So our commitment is to revitalize this corner and really just bring it back. And this rezoning is required for the usages that we have lined up. So we hope that all of you take this into consideration and we're able to revitalize this corner it's quite obvious it is needed some attention for some time. We have some major exterior facade enhancements. The tongue groove wood siding is not exactly appealing anymore. We've already cleared out a lot of dead trees that were there for far too long. So we haven't even owned the property for 2 months. And if you drive by, you see our commitment to clean it up and do it right. So just again, want to express our gratitude for considering this rezoning. And we're just pleased to be here today. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant?
I'm just curious, with the three uses you described, that feels like it might be a little hard to mesh together, like more public-oriented sports thing with data center and offices. I'm sure you guys have a good plan, but I'm just curious how it relates to zoning and, views from the main streets, if you could speak to that at all.
Yeah, no, that's great. The data center with a large indoor facility is odd. The unique part about the data center is they actually want their customers and clients to come in and view the data center. So yes, it's a high security. They also they're gonna have a vast office area. North of 40,000 square feet of office plus the data center, which is 20,000 square feet. So it's really going to bring it back to life in every sense. Our major concern with the property was that center building. If anybody's familiar with this site, there's a front portion that was rehabbed by Pearson. There's a center portion with a data center and warehouse. Well, we've actually, in less than 2 months, we've already found a usage for all three facilities, and that's just in a few months of owning it. And that's why there is significant energy behind this. So I actually think we believe the mixed uses actually is a testament to what the campus can be and should be in the future. And we've gone through, we think we've hired the best with Shive to delineate and make sure that we are meeting all requirements with those usages. And a matter of fact, too, the unique part is there's really three independent buildings. They're separated in every sense. They have links, but those are just walkways to connect. So it's a little bit easier to separate and delineate, even from a fire standpoint and a life safety standpoint. So there's my rambling.
So the plan is basically small office on the left, data center with the office in the middle, and the volleyball thing on the right?
No, so actually on the far right-hand corner, plan view right or north, or Mark, you can jump in here if you'd like to too. That is what we reference as the plaza. That was renovated by Pearson from 16 to 19, and then obviously COVID hit. So that is a plan to modify the exterior to make it look like the interior. If you went into the inside, you'd be like, wow, this is a brand new office space. So we have a user for that plaza right portion, 145,000 square feet-ish, with exterior facade enhancements that are going to be extensive. And then you see a link, if you pan just kind of, it's southwest, there's a 200-foot link that we have aspirations to remove, so it is more of a separation. And then we can bring more trails and more outside to inside. If you drive by, it actually looks like there's more building because of that 200-foot link, and it goes up a hill, so it's actually very unneeded in our opinion in the future, because it's not one big campus, it's multiple uses. And then when you go back to the property closer to 80 southwest, that's the center building that we reference. That is where there would be a large office use right adjacent to the data center, which is that tail piece that's built into the hill. It's a concrete bunker, if you will. Yep, right there.
Okay.
Sorry, it's tough with, thank you very much, you did well. And then the warehouse, so the warehouse is on the center building, just plan view north where your cursor is. That is where the volleyball user is planning to go. There's actually, it's a great warehouse. It's 55,000 square feet of 22-foot clear height. They want to use that temporarily this late fall, and then we want to have an addition to the north, just north of that, where we get the full breadth of the 32-foot clear height required for volleyball.
Interesting. Thanks for explaining all that.
So I can ramble. You can interrupt me at any time, please.
Thank you. Are there any further questions for the applicant?
I'd have some questions just about the intent of the, in the change of use, is the parking sufficient, or is it overparked, is it underparked, access parking and things like that, or any changes you envision there?
There will in doubt have to be some modifications, because the volleyball user to the north would likely encompass some of that parking lot. Currently, I believe we have plenty of parking for our usages. They were at one point in time for just the plaza, the white roof portion, they were planning to have 1,000 employees there, and that primarily was fed from the northeast. But there undoubtedly will have to be modifications. Another proposal that we have for future approval would be a parking lot for the data center user, because again, they want customers to come in. It's a showpiece. It's not a top secret. We can't ever have anyone come inside. So yes, there'll be some change up in parking, but we do believe we have adequate spaces at the moment.
Any last questions for the applicant? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, do we have a motion on the matter?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Discussion?
Yeah, very, very supportive. I love the creative, adaptive reuse. It's really nice to see, so much of it move so quickly, because I thought that property was going to be sitting vacant for a very long time. I didn't see another large office user taking over that, so I think it's a great use. I think my concerns are just, it is very, very large parking lots, just understanding how the parking requirements will change. I would love to see less parking, or, maybe it broken up in a little bit different way. It seems to be designed in a kind of an old-fashioned way of a very, very, very large open parking lot. But yeah, generally supportive of the whole concept. Love it.
Again, it's nice to see that whole area being used and that it is being repurposed as opposed to tearing down amazing building and reusing what's already there.
Yep, I agree. Commissioner Wade or Miller, any final comments?
It's out of order, but curious how many people you imagine for the volleyball events?
I think, sir, at this point, it's only
All
the
right.
commission
My bad.
that's able to confer among themselves.
No, I agree with James's comments about just the exciting mix of uses and adaptive reuse. I'm excited. It gives me kind of, relative to the previous, the ACT campus, makes me excited to, I feel like they'll probably do well there as well. It's exciting to see this area of town start to be reused.
Yeah, definitely. Commissioner Wade?
I'll just repeat what everybody else is. I mean, glad to see some movement, some activity, some energy with it. So I was glad to see it in the papers as well. So that was good to see.
All right, and with that, we'll go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And the motion passes unanimously. Which brings us finally to item number 8, case number REZ 25-12, consideration of an amendment to 14-5K neighborhood open space requirements.
It needs to be shared.
How do I do that?
One second.
Okay, thank you. Great. Good evening, everyone. Rachel Schaefer with Neighborhood and Development Services. This is REZ 250012, agenda item number 8. And this is for the consideration of an amendment to the zoning code, specifically the neighborhood open space requirements. Oh, thank you. So the proposed ordinance we're discussing today is an amendment to, again, the city's neighborhood open space requirements that were initially adopted in 1994. The neighborhood open space dedication requirement is for developers to set aside land for parks or pay a fee in lieu of land dedication to be used by the city's Parks and Recreation Department to acquire and develop park facilities for the community. This requirement ensures that those responsible for creating the need for new parks cover the cost rather than existing residents in the community. So this is a look at our current formula that we use to decide how much required open space dedication there will, what the requirement will be for development. So the current formula is used to calculate that requirement is acres of undeveloped property multiplied by the maximum dwelling units allowed per undeveloped acre of the property being developed. And that is multiplied by 65%, which is a rough estimate of the average development density of Iowa City. And then that is further multiplied by persons per dwelling unit based on the most recent census, and then again multiplied by 3/1,000, which is the community standard of the goal of requiring 3 acres of neighborhood park space per 1,000 people. So this is the current formula we're utilizing as developments are proposed. And the reason we're needing to update the code is because there's been several zoning code updates, as you can imagine, since 1994 when this was originally approved. The main issue with the existing formula, and as staff we work with it, is based on the requirement to utilize maximum density, which causes several problems. So one of those problems is in residential zones. Since 1994, we've allowed more housing types. So think duplexes, attached single-family housing types, and all of those things contribute to an increased maximum density than what was originally envisioned in 1994. The formula is also not calculable for projects in Riverfront Crossing in the Central Business District, and this is simply because there is no maximum density that we can use for those districts. Also in the form-based the form-based zones, those again allow a wider and even wider range of housing types, as you all are familiar with, and that creates a very high maximum density for those properties if they were to be rezoned to form those form-based code districts. And even though we allow that maximum density, we don't foresee any developer building, to maximum for those sites. So the requirements end up being a little overbearing for those properties. And then again, the current requirements create a burden for small infill projects. So think about when you have one lot and you're simply trying to divide it into 2, that homeowner, that single person proposing that development, the fees tend to be a barrier to get that done. So the goal of the update, again, is to remove that density as part of the main part of the calculation and adopt a formula that works for all zoning districts. Also adopt a formula that works within the city's goals and budget and is reasonable and approachable for developers and subdividers. So as far as the proposed amendments go, there's 4 main sections. We have stuff related to applicability and the procedures of the code, then the formula itself, switching that up, the addition of a dedication cap or a maximum amount of land to be dedicated, and then the neighborhood open space district boundary map itself. So that first change, again, is related to the applicability of the code. So the current ordinance applies the neighborhood open space requirements to residential subdivisions, commercial subdivisions containing residential uses, and planned developments. And the proposed amendment simplifies the process by simply stating that this requirement is required at preliminary plat stage. So this change recognizes that the major developments, including most planned developments, already go through preliminary platting where infrastructure and unit layout are determined, making it an appropriate point to assess open space needs. It also exempts smaller projects like the one I just described that only require a final plat, as these are typically follow-ups to earlier subdivisions that already accounted for open space. So again, that would be like a one-lot subdivision or one lot splitting into 2. We typically only require final plat for a project like that. And then ultimately this update improves clarity, avoids duplication, and ensures the requirements align with the scale and the timing of the proposed development. Moving on to a change in the formula. Iowa City's ordinance was compared to 18 other jurisdictions that require neighborhood open space dedication, and this formula on the screen here was selected based on its alignment with the update's goals, conformance with best practices, informed by the research that we conducted on those other jurisdictions, and then, of course, ease of use between the developer and staff as well. So the updated formula is number of units times person per dwelling units based on the most recent census times 3/1,000. Again, that's 3 acres per 1,000 residents. So basically taking out that the density requirement and relating the density to the land and going strictly for the number of units being proposed as the means in which we're calculating things. Can't scroll over. Oh. It's okay. Oh, there we go. Sorry, lost my mouse. Yep. Because the city's zoning districts vary significantly in how and when unit counts are established, we incorporated into this new formula sort of a flexible method for estimating unit numbers at the time of preliminary plat. So in single-family residential zones, lot size provides a reliable proxy for unit count, since lots are typically platted individually for those units being proposed in single-family. So you have a lot, it can fit a single-family home. So that's what we would utilize for single-family residential zones. In multifamily residential zones and commercial zones, it gets a little bit more complicated. Unit counts are not known until later in the development process typically. So instead of each platted lot, staff would determine the maximum dwelling units. So kind of going back to that old way of doing things, the maximum dwelling units that could be allowed, and it would be adjusted by that, again, that estimated 65% build out, which offers a consistent estimate for those specific lots that can fluctuate unit count wise after preliminary plat. So think of a larger lot that would have a multifamily building on it. There's potential for a fluctuation from the time of preliminary plat to the building permit process where unit count could change, internal configurations, heights, things like that. So this allows us to not have to go back and recalculate those units if they do change after preliminary plat. And then in the riverfront crossings and east side mixed-use districts where flexibility and mixed-use configurations are common, the applicant will provide an estimated unit count at preliminary plat with final numbers being verified at final plat. And then as far as the form-based zones go, we actually have we will get unit numbers from the neighborhood plan, which is much more specific for the form-based code districts. So developers will actually, on that neighborhood plan, show us the building types they're proposing. So that'll have an accurate unit count. And similarly, for OPD's plan development overlays, we will get a total unit count from their OPD plan. Alrighty. So in addition to changing that calculation, we're also proposing the addition of a dedication cap. So this would cap the requirement for neighborhood open space at 10% of the total site area. After calculating the required open space, staff will compare those results to the 10% of the total site area. And if it's greater than that, we will default to that maximum dedication. So this cap is needed to ensure the requirement remains reasonable, particularly in high density or mixed use developments, where the formula could otherwise generate an open space requirement that consumes an excessive portion of the site. Without a cap, projects in areas like riverfront crossings or the form-based zones where unit counts are high but land is limited could face unrealistic dedication expectations that hinder development feasibility on those sites.
Can I ask a quick question about the dedication cap requirement?
Yep.
So is the intention to ensure that developers do not dedicate more than 10% or just to ensure that they're not required to dedicate more than 10%?
So I guess the intent is that when we do the calculations on some of our very high, in small lots with high unit counts, the calculation works out where it could be something greater than what's actually the site has. So it could, I'll show you an example, but in some instances you might have a 1.5 acre site with many units, and the requirement, the way the calculation works out, you're actually required to dedicate more than the land you have available to dedicate, which doesn't really work out. So basically the greater the unit count, the greater your requirement is. So those super dense sites, we need some way to control and be able to actually develop those sites without eating all of their land up with open space dedications. Does that answer your question? Or?
Yeah, thank you.
And I have an example of a site that actually kind of works out that way, so I'll get to that. Okay, and then the last part of the change is the neighborhood open space district boundary map. So these maps are utilized when, instead of giving land as part of the requirement, we instead get a fee in lieu of land. And those fees must, the money we take in from those fees must be utilized within these district boundaries. So wherever the property is, it has to be utilized within the same district. So that's what we utilize these maps for. And currently, this map is housed in the Parks Master Plan, so in a totally separate document than where these requirements live. So the first thing we're proposing is to bring this map into the zoning code, so it's there with the requirements. Staff is also proposing to revise the boundaries by consolidating several sub-areas into larger districts. So I'll show, I have some bigger maps, I'll show you sort of those changes. And basically, when discussing the implementation of this ordinance with Parks and Rec staff, it was noted that the current boundaries are too segmented, which can make land acquisition and use of fee in lieu funds restrictive and difficult. So by expanding these consolidated expanding and consolidating these boundaries, we are providing Parks and Recreation a little bit more flexibility as to where they can use these funds. This is especially needed because there is a time limit on when those funds are used. So Parks and Rec has 5 years to use those funds. So if land wasn't ready or Parks wasn't ready to make certain improvements, this allows them more flexibility to move to a different area. So here's the current neighborhood open space district map from 2017.
So you're saying currently, like if it was in C5, it would have to be in C5 or
In
anywhere
C5.
with a C?
No, in C5. Wow. Yeah, so as you can imagine, just think about our core districts. There's not a whole lot of land, and a lot of those parks are fully, developed, and money could be better spent elsewhere to improve the overall neighborhood park system. So.
And are we just asking questions free? Is that okay? Does the fee in lieu has to go to acquire a property?
It can also be used to improve existing park systems, yes.
Okay.
So here's our proposed update. So I guess I'll just show you that, and then I have them compared on the next slide. But yeah, basically taking a lot of these, what your assumption was, all the Cs, and kind of grouping them together. But this map kind of shows overlaid. You can see those smaller districts, and the color behind it is the new district. So in Central, all of them were combined into one. Same with the North District, the Northeast. We also expanded the district boundaries to incorporate our entire growth boundaries. So as we acquire and annex land, we'll be able to put those funds somewhere. So that's what you see here when it's colorful. That wasn't in the map before, but now extends to those dotted lines, which is the Iowa City growth area. Some of these you can see they did split, like these S2 and S3. That's simply using the Highway 6, a more intense transportation corridor as sort of the boundary instead of Muscatine as it was before. Any questions on those changes?
Is Riverfront Crossings fully within Central, or does it kind of span?
I believe it's fully within Central, yes. Or does it go over?
Sorry, I think there's some in Southwest
Oh, yep, you're right.
that are west of the river.
Yeah.
Question on NE1 by the ACT campus. So is that part of Northeast or is it North?
So this will be all this tan color is in the new north boundary. And then Northeast is, so yeah, they'll be divided a little bit, I believe.
So, sorry, but is there a rhyme or reason why NE1, because it's natural dividing is Highway 1, like a major arterial highway, why it doesn't fall within Northeast versus North?
Yeah, I think that was a symptom of where the existing Northeast boundaries were, I guess, but that is a good point.
Yeah, because ACT will kind of bleed into.
Yeah, we were also trying to balance, I guess, just the size of these districts and trying to keep them fairly similar. But that is a good point. Any other questions on the district boundaries? Okay. So here I just have some example impacts where we ran through 6 different development scenarios to analyze sort of how this change in the formula would impact the dedication requirements. So as you can see in this table, open space dedication requirements for some of these traditional neighborhoods will decrease under the new formula based on the numbers we utilized. And this change ultimately reflects that correction in the assumption that we have in the current code. So the assumption in the current code is that we're building to 65% of what's allowed. In the updated formula, this is tied exactly to what the units proposed for that property. So the number is tied to that instead of what could be developed on the property. So that second example, this Lexington Avenue one, is an example of that 2-lot split that I referenced a while ago. So that smaller 1 lot dividing into 2. So previously a requirement of $6,000, a little over $6,000 would have been required for that property, and under the new formula that would require this, but typically those wouldn't go to preliminary platting, so those would not even be, the neighborhood open space requirement would not be applied.
So as it relates to just infill development in general, if it's just like a existing lot, you're building you like tear down a house and build a 3-story whatever, mixed use or something, that would require open space if it had residential in it, but now it wouldn't? Or is that different than what we're talking about?
That would probably just require a site plan.
Yeah.
So right now, the current formula is, current neighborhood open space is triggered through the subdivision process. And so something like just a site plan would not trigger it now or with the proposed.
So the difference is whether or not you need both preliminary and final platting. If it was just a final plat currently, we would require that neighborhood open space, but now it's only triggered when preliminary plat. So.
I think I'm getting confused between neighborhood open space, which is what this
Yes.
is, and just open space on
yeah, that's a
for
separate.
residential
That's still
development.
required.
That's
Yeah, the
that's
on-site
separate.
open space for the residents of the development.
Separate.
Yeah, yep.
Got it. Sorry.
No, you're good.
And who determines, whether to use fee in lieu or an actual dedication?
Yeah, so our code actually has it describes sort of what we're looking for when it comes to open space. And the city kind of has the option of whether to take what they could offer or the fee in lieu. But there is a description within our code of what we're looking for and what doesn't qualify and what does.
Is that fee in lieu a material part of the parks budget?
No, we've discussed it with parks, and it fluctuates so much, and is, there's no good timing. It's when developers come, so it's something they do appreciate and utilize fully, but not something that they build into their, main budget line.
Thank you.
And then here's some examples of the riverfront crossing districts and the form-based code zones. These are all conceptual sort of projects we utilize some concepts for, but give a good idea of what that would look like using our current and then the updated. So using our current ordinance, open space fees in high density projects, particularly in areas like the riverfront crossing districts, like you can see here on 700 South Dubuque Street, and the form-based code districts, typically we saw in our numbers that they're exceeding $1 million. And ultimately, this is just hard to justify from a planning and policy standpoint, and doesn't encourage that dense development that the city wishes to see in these zones. So this amount of land, again, creates a significant barrier to those type of compact, walkable developments that align with a lot of the city's other goals. So again, with the combination of the update and only requiring dedication for the actual units being proposed, that 10% cap also ensures that the open space requirements remain reasonable and make sure that projects are feasible. So here's that example I was talking about, that 700 South Dubuque in the riverfront crossing districts. If we used our updated formula, the numbers work out to be where the requirement would be 1.67 acres, which is more than what they what they had. I don't have the numbers up here, what their acreage was, but it was a lot. So this is basically 1.67 was greater than the 10%, so the requirement goes down to the 0.19 acres. So that's that example of that cap being utilized. And then ultimately, together, these changes align with the requirements, aligning with actual development patterns while maintaining the city's goal of acquiring high-quality open space as new housing is developed. And overall, the updated formula approves predictability, fairness, and scalability across all the zoning districts as we set out to do, without compromising the city's open space objectives. So ultimately, staff recommends that Title 14 zoning be amended as illustrated in Attachment 1, which was in your packet, to update the requirements related to neighborhood open space dedication to continue implementing the city's goal of providing adequate open space for the city's residents. And here's sort of the anticipated timeline. If there's a positive recommendation from Planning and Zoning Commission, we're looking at September 16th to get all the way through the process.
Great. Thank you for the presentation and some thoughtful proposed updates to the code. I just had one comment, which is just looking at the proposed text of the dedication cap. Mm-hmm. It says the maximum amount of land to be dedicated is 10% of the total acres of land being developed. Mm-hmm. Might be worth considering saying something like the maximum amount of land required to be dedicated under this section will not exceed, just to clarify that if somebody wants to dedicate more, that, you know, they would be able to do that and it wouldn't be prohibitive.
Good point, thank you.
But yeah, otherwise this makes a lot of sense to me, so thank you for putting it together. Does anybody else on the commission have questions for staff?
Yeah, I didn't realize there's what, a 5-year limit that you have to use that? Mm-hmm. How much money have we, or how much have we lost, or have we lost money by not utilizing that?
They use it all.
Yeah.
They do use it?
They
Okay.
find a way, yeah.
That was my concern.
Whether it's the best or most efficient way, they do find a way.
City Park is coming along.
Oh, the pool. Yep.
Yes.
The pool's being used from that money?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
No.
Could you go back, Rachel, to the slide about the different zones and how it's, yeah, that one. So I'm just curious, like for Riverfront Crossing and Eastside Mixed Use and the form-based codes, or form-based zones, you just are getting the unit count by the developer at the submittal of the preliminary plat? Mm-hmm. Or I guess that's just the first one. But then for the multifamily residential and commercial, it's an estimate at the beginning. I'm just curious, like, why not just do one or the other for both?
Do you want to speak to that? You have more experience.
So you're asking about multifamily residential and commercial versus riverfront crossings?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, so if we used one way to determine unit count, it would have to be the developer provides it. Because for riverfront crossings, we cannot estimate using density. And so since multifamily residential zones and commercial zones do have a maximum density, we're proposing to use that for those zones. Because it's similar, I guess, to, you know, as Rachel was describing, you have a preliminary plat, you have lot 2, that's maybe 1.5 acres. You have no idea how many units are going to be on there. So we were just using max density because we know the code limits the density, right? But for riverfront crossings, there's no maximum density. So we can't estimate it using the standards in the code. So we're proposing to get an estimate from the developer.
And then at the end, you have to, like, if
So-
they change it, is there a process for, or do they just use the?
We are not proposing a process that it goes back and, because at final plat, the legal documents will state this is what the owner owes for neighborhood open space fees.
Mm-hmm.
So once that final plat is approved, that's the number. If they do more, if they do less, that's still the number.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if there were dramatic revisions, you could request a change, right? But I would assume that would be pretty unlikely.
It would have to be a replat. I think we'd have to make him go through the process again for a final plat. There's nothing in the ordinance that we're proposing that would trigger a redo, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's a dramatic change to the unit count.
If there's a dramatic change,
Well, like, in theory, you could replat it, but in all likelihood, you're not going to unless it.
yeah, and I guess there's nothing in the proposed amendments that would require the developer to go back, or the city to give money back, for example.
Yeah.
Like maybe it could go either way, right?
Sure.
More units, fewer units.
Yeah, and functionally, the developer's going to have many incentives to correctly state the unit count.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any further questions for staff?
I guess I just have questions on the general process of how land is identified and then converted to space. Can you speak to that at all?
You mean land is identified for open space? So typically, if we get a subdivision application, we will talk with Parks. If there is an interest in acquiring any of the land for park space, I will say, I'm just trying to think of some examples since I've been here. The one land dedication that we did have was Hickory Hill Park. It really is kind of a conversation with park staff to see if it makes sense to locate a park in this area, if there's enough land to have a park. In many cases, we will take the fee in lieu of land dedication.
And it's up to the city.
It's up to the city, yeah. The developer can request, the developer can say, I'm proposing to give you this land here. And sometimes we say, we're not interested in that land for a park. Oftentimes it's heavily wooded and sloped and is just not usable. For example, that's not something we would be interested in taking.
Interesting.
And so, like trail connections and other things that remain part of their property doesn't count. Is that
Well,
correct?
we did have an example with Monument Hills where this was before your time on the commission, obviously, but this is the development at the corner of Rochester and Scott, where their dedication was a combination fee in lieu and land dedication, and they provided a connection between the development and that existing park. I can't remember the name of
Calder Park.
Calder
Yeah,
Park,
I'm
yeah. So
familiar.
that counted as a portion of their dedication.
Yeah, and we did, in the ordinance, we did call out pedestrian and bicycle trails, as well as private open space that's publicly accessible as means that could count towards that dedication requirement. So we've done that in practice, but it's in the code now.
Any final questions for staff?
I guess my only question, would staff have any concerns of switching anyone to the Northeast District versus being in the north?
Sorry, I'm just going to jump in,
Yeah, go ahead,
Rachel.
go ahead.
In looking at the map, I think you make a good point, and I almost think we should revise it to follow the highway.
Yeah.
So
And
just-
even this piece here, move it so it's south of Scott. So Central follows Scott. And northeast would include this bit here. Sorry, you guys can't see what I'm pointing at. So there's this little teal area here, which is in Central, but it doesn't follow a street. So I think this should be removed. And I think northeast, this purple, should be here in this teal and then this yellow to follow Scott and the highway. Does that make sense to the commission?
Yeah.
I think that's a good point. Thank you.
Yeah, very good point. So yeah, everything, extend the Northeast District north to Dodge/Highway 1. And
Especially in context of
Yeah.
the ACT campus, it makes sense
Yeah.
to keep that all together.
very good point.
Okay, any final questions for staff before we go to a vote?
I think I have some additional questions. I'm not exactly sure. It just seems like a complicated subject, and I want to understand it just before I kind of vote on it. But is there any concern that this would kind of encourage less dense development? I'm kind of trying to figure out the math here.
Yeah, with that unit being, or the unit numbers, sort of being what triggers it, the more units you have, the more you're dedicating or being required to dedicate. That's the main reason we had that 10% cap. When you look at those numbers, though, ultimately, the way the math works out is that you're going to be dedicating less than what you would have previously been required. So it's not any less, I guess, it's not deterring development any more than what our current ordinance is doing. So if anything, hopefully it promotes development. going forward.
Have you heard specifically, from developers that this is a particular pain point? I think, I hate to see less space or less money dedicated to parks. I'm just kind of curious in general what feedback you've had to kind of spur this.
I mean, the main reason we're doing this is our current code is unworkable.
Sure.
We have zones that don't, we have a formula that's based on maximum density. We have zones that don't have maximum density. We have zones that encourage so much housing and a diversity of housing. The fees that would be required are unreasonable in our new form-based zones, South District, Southwest District. We also have, we want to encourage what Rachel was talking about, these infill lot splits, where you can get another unit or two in our existing neighborhoods. And that, in a way, our current formula kind of, I don't know that it discourages that. I mean, the subdivisions still go through, they pay the fee, we work it out. But I think with the proposed formula, it's definitely better in terms of encouraging infill development, encouraging high-density development.
And are we generally, I saw there's a page just sort of showing what other municipalities do. Are we kind of in alignment with similar sized communities as far as our formula, would you think?
Yeah, we're definitely more in alignment now with
Okay.
this update as far as sort of best practices and using that unit as the anticipated number of new units as the trigger.
Okay, thank you. Well, if there are no further questions for staff, is there a motion on the matter?
I move to approve with the zoning quadrant readjustments.
Sorry, what about the chairs? Do you want to add your change to the language as well?
And the enhanced language to,
Yeah, as to whether there's a motion on the proposed zoning amendments as they've been amended by the commission and staff this evening.
Yeah, I guess the change to the map, and then, I don't know, do you want to repeat what you were suggesting?
Oh, yeah.
Regarding the cap language? If you want to incorporate that as well?
Yeah, I would just recommend clarifying that the dedication cap provision be revised to clarify that the requirement is capped, but there is no cap on discretionary allotment. In other words, if
Okay.
developers would like to grant more than 10%, they're able to do so. So thank you for that clarification. And with that,
With those adjustments and clarifications, I second the motion.
Great. Discussion?
No, I mean, seems to make sense. Hopefully it does help spur, by lowering the financial impact to, as part of this, as far as development, hopefully it helps to spur additional growth and density.
The new formula seems to simplify the process also for staff, so that's a good thing.
Commissioner Davies?
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for simplifying. I like the, removing the requirement for smaller split infill developments. I think I generally have concern about, dedicating less land and less money to park improvement, but I certainly see why it is prohibitive to development, and it needs to be simplified, so generally supportive.
Yeah, that old formula was confusing.
It was.
Appreciate the simplification and, yeah, making it easier for infill development and, yeah, I support it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it streamlines things nicely and appreciate the proposal and the comparison to similarly situated communities. So with that, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the proposed text amendment passes unanimously, which brings us to item number 9, consideration of meeting minutes from July 2nd, 2025. Is there a motion to approve?
Our shortest meeting ever.
Yeah, probably not very controversial minutes.
No.
Do we have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second? No,
You got it, Billy.
All right.
that was an easy one.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And minutes are approved unanimously, which takes us to item number 10, planning and zoning information.
Liz, do you want to Liz has an update for us.
I have a legal update for you.
All right.
This year, the Iowa legislature passed House File 706, which modified Iowa's open meetings law, and that increased the penalty for open meeting violations. And so as part of that change, we're recommending that commissions not go into closed session unless you've received a written memo from the city attorney's office or one of our attorneys has made a recommendation on the record that going into closed session is acceptable. And the reason for that is that it's a defense to that violation if you've received and relied upon the reasonable advice of an attorney in going into closed session.
In closed session meeting, convening when the public's not present.
Right, going out of open session. And I know this commission doesn't do that very often, but it's something to be aware of in case that's ever a need that's being considered.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, and we will do our best to avoid going rogue.
Yes.
What's the,
But wait, there's more. Another change to the open meetings law was that board and commission members in Iowa that were appointed after July 1st are now required to undergo a 1 to 2 hour training that's been approved by the Iowa Public Information Board. And as part of that, our office and city council would like all board and commission members to undergo that training for consistency's sake and given the new increased penalties for open meeting violations. And so there is a training that's being offered by the Iowa Public Information Board on August 26th. And we can certainly get you more information about that. My understanding from looking at the IPIB's website is that it will be an online training. They'll provide some kind of certification to you because it's required that that training be certified and that we keep a record of that. So more information to come on available trainings.
Okay, thank you. Well, thanks for keeping an eye on the evolving legislation, and we will wait to hear more about the training.
Sure. Welcome.
Anything further from either council or Ann?
Just thank you all for accommodating my vacation schedule. There will be no meeting on August 20th, but it works for everyone to meet on August 27th. So just update your calendars. Appreciate that.
Yeah, great. Well, hope you have a great vacation.
Tomorrow's my last day, so bye, everyone. It was great working with you all.
Oh, yeah,
Wish you all the
Rachel.
best.
Syracuse?
Good luck.
Syracuse, New York. Yes, that is next.
great. Well,
Beer weather.
I had that on my list to
Anne hasn't, she's not believing it quite yet.
great working with you, and we definitely wish you the best.
Thank you.
So, and with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And we are adjourned.